Radhe Radhe. Welcome to another live Sangha and happy Mother's Day. It's also ASMR Sunday, so we'll be dedicating this stream to not only all the motherly people out there in the world, but also to relaxation, affirmation, and I hope you find yourself accepted, welcomed, and feeling comfortable here. Thank you, Nick. I am having a good day today thus far. And welcome, Aquarius lady, and happy Mother's Day to you. And thank you, Nick, for your 10 roses blessing us so early on. Radhe Radhe. I wanted to set the intention for this space as one where we can come together as fellow spiritual seekers to uplift each other, relate in one another's experience, and share positive sentiments. And hello, user 227. Sky Guardian, you ask, have I ever had dosa? That sounds very familiar. I think I might have, but I forget exactly what that is. And hello, Cole. Welcome. Now I trust that all of you who are joining in now are as well as you can be on this day, given whatever feelings may be arising. And hello, Kinya. It's time for sleep. Well, I hope when that sleep does come, it is full of relaxation and peace. Hello, Fab. And hello, Mrs. Name. Sky Guardian, you ask, how about Malai Kofta? Now that I'm especially unsure of. You'll have to tell me what that is. And hello, Donna B. Happy to see you. And thank you, Pantagor, for your heart me. Jai Sitaram. And hello, Liz. Thank you for your heart me. Radhe Radhe. Now I know what to get today at the Indian restaurant. Alright. I'll keep my eyes peeled for dosa and malai kofta. Good evening, Liz. Hello, Madeline's. Aquarius lady, you share it's been a busy day for you with the Zoom. I believe that. I think any day at the zoo is going to be a particularly busy one. And yes, I have been viewing the northern lights. It's been very lovely and such a magical experience. I mean, how amazing is it to look up at the sky and see it shimmering, dancing around. What a beautiful planet we all live on. And thank you, Madeline's, for your 4 tiny dinies. Yippee! And Katie Pond, you're glad that I'm on early. My live usually starts at 1 in the morning in your country. Well, I am glad to do an early one today. I wanted to do an early one today so I could take my mother out for some dinner afterwards. Fab, you ask, what is a book that I think everyone should read? I think everyone's experiences are so unique and beautiful. I feel like I am happy with whatever we all have read thus far. But one of my favorite books that I've discovered in this life is the Bhagavad Gita. It is a song that was sung 5,000 years ago on a battlefield, just before the two sides of the armies were in conflict. And you might wonder, what kind of song would be sung moments before war? Is it about conquering the enemy? It's about conquering ourselves, really. Journeying within to befriend the love, the light that your soul is, which is amazing when you think about it. Now, I would love to talk more about this book. And I would love to answer some more questions. But I have a question of the day for all of you. As many of you know, I like to start my lives with a question of the day, and then a short reading. And then we can open the floor up to questions and answers, if that sounds alright. But I'll put a pin in all the questions asked so far, and we can come back to them in a few minutes. My question of the day today is very simple. What do you do to care for the mother? Or alternately phrased, what do you do to honor the mother? What do you do to love the mother? How do you love that source of love? And thank you, Jen Singh, for your 6 roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Madeline's. I will pass on your Mother's Day wishes to my mother. Nick, you share that you bought your mother a bouquet of flowers today and spent the day with her. I love to hear that. Rasulullah. I'm sure I could better pronounce your lovely name. Muhammad, you share by being grateful to the source of all things. I like that. Caterpillar foot emoji. Vibe waver. Look after her when in pain. Yeah, it's a simple thing we can do. I like that, and yet so profound. Steffi Green, you're cooking mostly for her and you together. I love to hear that. And Liz, you share cooking and buying her things. You became her mom now. I love that. The love does come around, doesn't it? Madeline's, you got your mom her favorite chocolate and the biggest hug and reminder of how great she is. I'm happy to hear that. Cole, you share respecting the earth in the ways you can, and also made coffee, did yard work for your mother. I love that. I love the overlap between the love for your mother and the love for your mother nature, Mother Earth. And Alana, you took her out for buttered chicken at a local restaurant today. I'm sure she loved that. Vibe Waver, you share that she suffers from endometriosis, so you help her with everything. You are a good child of her. That's lovely. And thank you, Katie Pond, for your heart me. And 14 bracelets you sent earlier. Radhe Radhe. And Katie Pond, you share that you make sure her needs are as well nurtured as she makes sure yours are, however she needs. I'm so happy to hear that. That's lovely. And Skip, you share by going no contact with her. Yes, sometimes boundaries need to be set, especially with our parents sometimes, and those boundaries can help make your relationship more healthier and increase the love through that distance. I get that. Mom Star Shop, you share that you care by loving yourself deeply and allowing mother's love to flow through you to others. I love that. Hannah, you ask, when was the last time I cried? Well, in my dream, I think I cry in my dreams almost every night. But in the waking, it's been about a week, probably. Thank you, Kat. I am doing good. I am also very tired today from gardening with my mother. Takes a lot of work to garden. Much respect to her for making it look so effortless, I should say. Kills, you share by taking care of yourself. Good. That's what the mother would want for us, indeed. And thank you for your peace and blessings. Rasulullah. Asma, you ask, who here is also a mother? I would love to know this as well. Mom Star Shop, you share that you were in the garden too. The sun is intense right now. That is for sure. Yes, I agree with that. And Madeline's, you add, yes, we take care of ourselves to save the mother stress. Right you are indeed. Mom Star Shop, you shared that you're a mother of 3. I love that. I am happy to hear you. Nazma, you have 1 girl. Amanda, you are a mama to 2 under 2. How lovely is that? Now a singular period. CC. You say, Yam, you give me the best advice. How do I deal with someone who blocked me out of the blue? Well, by understanding that we can never force someone to be open with us, nor do we have a choice for them to close us off. What we can do is hold space for them if ever they intend on opening ourselves up for that connection again. Until then, patience and recognizing that what they're going through is not a reflection of you. Who knows what's going through their mind, and you are still whole. You are still a beautiful being. Even if others aren't receptive to that beauty within you, it's their loss, not yours. And Small, you share that you don't have a mother, so nothing, but you do care for Mother Nature. Then you do have a mother, and she is the whole world, and I'm happy to hear that. And Chloe Evans, you share that your mom and you go to visit your grandmother. I love that. Lots of moms there. Dreamweaver, you constantly inspire her and help her regain her passions. I love that. That's so sweet. And thank you, It's Lol Goggles, for your 30 roses a few minutes ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Asma, thank you for your heart me. Jai Sita Ram. And thank you, Jane, for your heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. And L-Wave Rider, thank you for your rose. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And thank you, Kills, for your heart me too. Radhe Radhe. And Steffi Green, thank you for your heart me as well. Jai Sita Ram. Now thank you all, everyone, for exploring my question of the day. I'm very grateful for this lovely reflection on how we can show care to our mothers, big and small, around the world, and as the world. Thank you. And again, happy Mother's Day to all you motherly beings. That includes every one of you, since we all have the capacity to be motherly, even in less traditional ways, especially those ways. I know that there's many people who aspire to be motherly, but for whatever reason are maybe unable to bear children, at least in the traditional way. And so there is a lot of conflict in one's sense of self with how to be that nurturing caregiver, but in more symbolic ways. My heart goes out to all of you. Thank you, Nick, for your pair of tiny dinies. Yippee! And Madeline's, thank you for your pair of tiny dinies. Yahoo! And Elwave Rider, thank you for your rose. Radhe, oh Radhe. And Michael Lockhart, thank you for your rose as well. And thank you, Gina, for your trio of roses. I should be giving you all roses today for Mother's Day. Jai Sita Ram. And Michael, thank you for another heart me. We will be reading from Roar the Ganges today, as we have been for about a month now or more. We are starting what I believe to be the last part of this book, probably part 5. Finding God Everywhere. This will be an especially wonderful part. In most of this book, it was all preparation for its author, Swami Tadatmananda, to become Swami Tadatmananda. For the most part of this book, he was not known by that, because he was not a Swami yet. Swami is a Hindu monk. And so he was initiated finally, in a previous chapter, into the Saraswati order, which is the goddess of knowledge and of learning and music and language and that sort of thing. So now in the final part will be, I assume, coming to understand through him what it's like to now be a Hindu monk. Here we start with some Sanskrit from the Katha Upanishad. Na tatra suryo bhakti na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yam agnihi tam eva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhassa sarvam idam vibhati, which translates to, God cannot be illumined by the sun, moon, or stars, nor even by lightning, what to speak of any flame. God alone shines, all else reflects its light, and by its light this entire universe is made manifest. From the 2nd canto, 2nd chapter, 15th verse. This chapter is called Deities of the Altar and Dashboard. The clouds, hanging over the mountains were tinged with red that evening as I sat on a bench, silently reciting my sannyasa, renunciation mantra. I had just returned from the Ghat, which is a kind of walkway that goes partially into the river, where I performed another rite of renunciation, a personal ritual not included in the sannyasa bhadati. For the past 15 years, I had kept a journal in which I recorded many events and observations of my life. It was an indispensable instrument for my emotional growth. I wrote extensively in times of distress and used it to explore painful emotions and buried memories. I also chronicled my struggles on the spiritual path and whatever insights I had picked up along the way. I had brought my journals to India, 8 thick notebooks containing hundreds of handwritten pages, with the intention of hurling them into the Ganges, the river, as an expression of my unconditional renunciation. The journals had already served their purpose. The value of keeping a journal, as I discovered over the years, was not in rereading old entries, but in the present moment act of clarifying thoughts and feelings by putting them into words. Each fresh entry in my journal brought a new depth of understanding to events unfolding in my life, and not infrequently those pages served as my therapist, listening without judgment as I spilled out my guts. Those journals represented Mark, the person who was swept away in the Ganges yesterday morning. It seemed only fitting to consign them, too, under her sacred waters. When I watched them splash into the water, I felt satisfied as this last vestige of Mark was carried away by the river's current. Yet, I knew my practice of journal keeping would not end here in Rishikesh. I was not ready to give up this important tool for spiritual and emotional growth. Sitting on the bench, chanting silently, I recognized how different I felt after all the rituals of the past 2 days. I am not a believer in mysterious, magical changes of any kind, yet I felt profoundly transformed. Each ritual left a deep imprint on me, from the shaving of my head and rites of purification up to my symbolic funeral and final vows. And just now, my journals represented the last 15 years of my life, as they have been offered unto the Ganges. The cumulative emotional and psychological impact of all these rituals was enormously powerful, reaching to the very core of my being. If it were not such a trite cliché, I might say that I felt reborn. My sense of newness was not merely the result of adopting saffron robes, but because something inside had shattered and collapsed. Standing in that frigid water with my arms stretched skyward as I recited my vows, I felt my own ego dropping away. My ego, that carefully crafted, artificial construct of self-image and self-importance, was stripped away at that moment. In an act of complete surrender, I shed my mantle of falsehood into the Ganges. Her purifying currents mercifully swept it away and freed me from its bondage. From that moment onwards, I felt the freedom and innocence of a little child. Rid of my own complexity, I absorbed the world with fresh wonder, abiding in the beauty of the present moment. Since Mark had already been washed down the river, I saw no point in thinking about the past. And since I had just renounced everything, I saw no point in thinking about the future either. I sat on the bench, enjoying the ever-changing play of clouds and dark shadows spreading over the mountains before me. Richard came strolling through the courtyard and sat down beside me. Looking out over the mountains, he said, "So, I don't suppose I can call you Mark anymore, can I?" "You can still call me Mark if you prefer. But I know that wouldn't be proper. So, tell me, how does it feel to be a Swami?" "Nice, I suppose." "Nice?" Richard exclaimed, his inflection climbing in an exaggerated comical way. "Is that all you can say after your 2-day ordeal?" Richard asked about the rituals I underwent. He peeked into the room where the preliminary rituals were being performed the day before yesterday. At one point he saw a Chutanai offering flowers and incense to a yellow-orange lump formed of turmeric powder. Richard was puzzled. I explained that before performing any elaborate ritual, an auxiliary puja, worshipping, is performed first to invoke Ishvara's, God's grace, for the successful completion of the main ritual. In this auxiliary puja, Lord Ganesha was invoked in a lump of turmeric. "Turmeric?" Richard remarked. "I thought that Ganesha was that pudgy deity with the head of an elephant." I explained that Ganesha is a personification of God's power to remove obstacles. According to traditional stories, Ganesha was the son of Lord Shiva and his wife, goddess Parvati. In a strange turn of events, Lord Shiva, failing to recognize Ganesha as his own son, became so enraged that he severed Ganesha's head. Because Parvati was so grieved, Shiva promised to give Ganesha a new head, one resembling the first head he beheld. As you can guess, it was an elephant he saw first. Such stories are popular, especially among children, but most educated Hindus don't take them literally. They could be considered mythological, part of the rich symbolic tapestry into which Hindu theology has been woven. Hindus believe that Ishvara, God, can be worshipped in many forms, each form representing a particular aspect of God. In the so-called Hindu Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Ishvara's power to create the universe is personified as Lord Brahma. His power to sustain the universe is personified as Lord Vishnu, and his powers of change and destruction are personified as Lord Shiva. In the same way, Lord Ganesha represents Ishvara's power to remove obstacles from our lives. Although Hindus might address their prayers to a diverse pantheon of gods and goddesses, they firmly believe that God is one. And yet, to say that Hindus believe in one God is not entirely accurate. Rather than professing there is but one God, they might more likely say there is only God. There is only Ishvara, since they believe that everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. Addressing Richard's question about the lump of turmeric, I explained that if everything is a manifestation of Ishvara, then Ishvara must be present in everything, in people, animals, plants, and even in inert objects. And if Ishvara is already present in everything, then any form whatsoever could conceivably be used for the sake of worship, including a lump of turmeric. During puja, a particular aspect of Ishvara is invoked in a symbolic form, usually sculpted from black granite, white marble, or cast in metal. But many other forms are also used for worship. An entire mountain is worshipped as Lord Shiva near Tiruvannamalai. The river Ganges is worshipped as Goddess Ganga. 5 temples scattered across South India are individually dedicated to Ishvara in the form of earth, water, fire, air, and space, the 5 fundamental elements. Really speaking, no one worships a statue or water or a lump of turmeric. God alone is worshipped through all of these forms. But why not worship God directly? Richard asked. You can, of course, I replied, but for many people it is easier using an icon of some kind. Consider this: Ishvara, who is present in all forms, cannot have a form of its own. Ultimately, Ishvara is formless. And also, a God who is the source for the universe must be beyond the universe, beyond our senses, beyond our minds and thoughts. So God is inconceivable. But how will you worship a formless, inconceivable God? Who will you pray to? That is why Ishvara is worshipped through many forms, forms loaded with symbolic meaning to attract and inspire the hearts of worshippers. Hindu culture amazes me, Richard remarked. Everywhere I look here, I see gods and goddesses. I once rode in an auto rickshaw in which the driver had turned his dashboard into an altar with pictures of Shiva, Ganesha, and an old Swami who was his family's guru. He decorated the pictures with fresh flowers and burned incense before them. His auto rickshaw looked like a temple on 3 wheels. I laughed and observed that Indian culture seems to be pervaded by religion to a far greater degree than in the West. Most Hindu homes have an altar where families worship daily. Wealthier families often have an entire room set aside for puja, prayer, and meditation. In cities and towns, you can hardly walk 100 yards without spotting a temple, tower, or roadside shrine. Everywhere are temples to Ganesha, Shiva, Krishna, Lakshmi, Rama, and a host of other deities. Many people visit a temple every day, if only for a few minutes, and throughout the year, various religious festivals are celebrated with great enthusiasm and gaiety. Because Hindu religion pervades daily life to such a great extent, many here say that Hinduism is not so much a religion as it is a way of life. It is not an organized religion like Christianity. There is no central authority, no hierarchy of power, no institution to ensure that everyone's beliefs are doctrinally correct. Every Hindu is free to draw upon whatever scriptural teachings they seem most helpful. And all are free to worship God in whichever form they choose. To define Hinduism, is an elusive task. Even its name is misleading. In ancient times, the word Hindu was unknown. It was apparently coined by medieval Persians to identify the country on the eastern side of the Indus River. Until then, this religion had always been known as Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion, or Vaidika Dharma, the religion based on the Vedas, humanity's oldest scriptures. Richard asked, "If I accept what the Vedas teach, does that make me a Hindu?" "Most Hindus would accept that," I answered, "but the most orthodox still claim that only one born into a Hindu family is truly Hindu. If you are not born into one of the 4 Hindu castes, you are a mlecha, an outcast. Like it or not, you and I are both outcasts, and in certain temples, we would never be admitted." I told Richard that such casteism and rigid orthodoxy is rapidly waning throughout India. Even so, Westerners are still denied entry to a few temples. Some forbid only those who are dressed immodestly or have come only to take photographs. Others bar all Westerners. Their white skin identifies them as mlechas. I had visited more than 100 temples and was turned away only once, at the Guruvayur temple in the southern state of Kerala. After my futile attempts to gain entrance there, I was told that even a past president of India had been turned away because he was a Sikh, not a Hindu. I narrated to Richard the comical story of my visit to the famous Vishwanath temple in Varanasi, the most revered Shiva temple in India. I knew I would encounter difficulty in gaining permission to enter, and was determined to persuade the temple authorities. At the temple's entrance stood a checkpost where, behind a large temple, sat no fewer than 6 khaki-clad policemen armed with rifles, ostensibly on duty to prevent attacks on the temple by Muslim fundamentalists. I introduced myself to the senior officer and explained my purpose. He proceeded to interrogate me. I answered him in the best Hindi I could manage, which was bad enough to make him laugh at times. "Show me your passport," he demanded. "Yeh raha mera passport." "Here is my passport." "You are from America, I see. You are Christian, not Hindu. You cannot enter the temple." I protested, "I am American, but I am also Hindu. All Americans are not Christians. There are many people of different faiths in America. Hindus, Jews, Sikhs, Muslims. But how am I to know that you are Hindu?" I wondered how I could convince him. I showed him the sacred thread and holy Rudraksha bead necklace I was wearing, but that failed to convince him. I chanted some verses from the Bhagavad Gita and explained their meaning, but he remained steadfast in his refusal. Finally, I recited a hymn from the Vedas, a lengthy prayer chanted by priests but unknown to most others. The senior officer sat behind the table, implacable, apparently unimpressed by my efforts. His 5 compatriots, on the other hand, were all smiling warmly. I never did find out if they were pleased by my Hindu-ness or amused by my bad Hindi. Nevertheless, they persuaded the officer to grant my admission. He finally summoned a priest who courteously escorted me into the temple. Alright. So, we read the whole chapter actually, which is probably the first. Just felt good to continue reading. But I thank you all for listening with me. Someone asked while we read, who is Richard? Yes, Asma. Richard is a British friend of Swamijis who he met. Richard was in India to just study, I guess, just observe, curious about the culture. And he was staying at the same ashram that Swami Taratmananda was. And they became kind of friends as they discussed the differences between East versus West. I like that chapter. And Sky Guardian, you ask, what page are we on? Let me check for you. We will be starting page 286 next time we read. And thank you for your lovely gifts, everyone, whilst I read. Allow me to extend my gratitude back to you now. Courtney Leah, thank you for your 1 plus 20 plus 7 plus 31 plus 15 roses. I don't think my mental math is good to tally up all that, but I am very grateful. Thank you. Radhe oh Radhe. And Frank, thank you for your quintet of roses. Jai Sita Ram. Pribech, hello. You ask for me to help you, please. You share that you are sad now because you are hopeless. The hopeful or hopeless are both welcome here. However you may find yourself, that is valid. I am sure that everyone is more than aware of how unpredictable life can be. But I'm happy to have you here and help you in the way that I can. And Peter Schaefer, thank you for your rose a minute ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. And hello, Gina. And happy Mother's Day to you as well. And good evening, Laurie. And Katie Pond, thank you for your pair of finger hearts and a pair of friendship necklaces. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Apple user, you ask, what do I think about horror movies? Well, not much. I haven't watched many. And Tatma Masi, thank you for your quintet of roses. Jai Sita Ram. Asma, you share that your husband was saying Radhe oh Radhe the other day. He's not on TikTok, but he listens when you watch. Aww. Well, he is a good husband too. Be attentive to places that you find yourself attentive. I am happy to hear that for you. And Apple user, you ask, if peace in mind is the goal, why is there horror movies and such? Some people enjoy them because it helps them face their fears. It allows people to live through scary experiences vicariously, which can be healing in some ways. It can also be unnecessary. It can put a lot of strain on the heart. Heart is very sensitive to fear. But if people use it to become more courageous, then that experience can be very opening. And Tan Hao Yom, thank you for your heartbeat. Jai Sita Ram. Kimmy, you ask, is it okay if you say Radhe Radhe? You never want to be offensive, but it's soothing to you. Of course it is, yes. Absolutely. It is certainly not gate-kept. No mantras are. Some require qualification. But that's not a cultural difference. If you have the qualification for that, then you are totally welcome to chant certain mantras. But it's just a salutation to the Divine Feminine. And we all have the ability to honor the Divine Feminine, especially on Mother's Day. And thank you, Mary, for your heart me a moment ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. And L-Wave Rider, thank you for your flowers. Jai Sitaram. And Lori, thank you for your Rosa and Ginger Man. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And Apple user, you ask, what did I do? What did I end up picking for me to do with my mom? Well, I was gardening with her today, and then we got some Slurpees. And then I'm gonna take her out for some Indian food after this live stream in about an hour. Gina, thank you for your trio of roses. Greetings, Alex. And John Simon, thank you for your heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. Katie Pond, you're wondering, what is my favorite Indian dish? There are so many of them that I haven't tried yet. I can't possibly have a favorite before I've tried everything. And Dut Nguyen, yes, of course, you are welcome to ask a question. I do love paneer, yes. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you, Asma, for your pair of roses. Rasulallah. Rasulullah. Rasulallah. I'll get it one of these days. You share that name means one aligned with the 7 heavens of your Lord. I love that. That's a wonderful name. Beautiful. And Alex, thank you for your pair of roses. And Roxy, thank you for your heart me. Radhe Radhe. And Giz, thank you for your rose. Jai Sitaram. Asma, you share that it's Rasul Allah. Allah. Rasul Allah. Rasul Allah. Rasulullah. I'm getting closer. Perhaps. Yes, I agree. All this yummy food talk is very hunger making. Melissa, you ask, what are my thoughts about love your enemy? How else can they turn from an enemy to your friend if you don't show them love? Those who are in pain may want to inflict pain on others. love is one way that we can ensure that pain dissolves and the cycle of suffering that they are continuing stops right in its tracks. Does this mean that we should take care of those who aren't taking care of us? Not necessarily. Love doesn't have to mean anything in particular. And let me scroll up. Duk Nguyen? I don't see your question. I see that you asked, and then you said, see my question. For some reason, this happened last time. Your questions don't seem to show for whatever reason. At least on my end. If anyone else can see Du Nguyen's question, please relay it to me. I'm not sure what the problem is. Technology is fickle, isn't it? Laura, you ask, have I ever experienced great suffering? It's difficult to compare suffering because the greatest suffering I've experienced will be the greatest suffering I've experienced. You know, the worst thing I've ever gone through is the worst thing I've ever gone through. And for you, the worst thing you've ever gone through is the worst thing you've ever gone through. So we've both gone through the worst thing that each of us have ever gone through. Now maybe if I was in your body and you were in mine, then we could say differently. But, you know, my threshold for suffering, I don't know how to compare that with others. I do know that all of us have suffered. Some people suffer in very obvious ways. They may grow up materially deficient or abused by their parents. That was not the kind of suffering that I've gone through. But even if you do live in a beautiful place with beautiful parents, it's still possible to get traumatized. It's still possible to have emotional deficit, which still affects your heart in the same way that others might experience, but in different ways. So, I say that I have suffered, but not in comparison to anyone else's. Okay, let me look again. Du Nguyen? I don't see it yet. Riasulav, good evening. Fat Cat Weaves, you shared that you just got stuck in Sydney traffic needing to wee. Now that's suffering. That is a very uncomfortable situation. Really starts to make you question some of your values. Rasulullah Muhammad, you ask, have I been made immune to suffering by the will of our Lord? No one is immune to suffering, but we can learn to grow from it rather than become poisoned by it. I think in desperation, at some point the soul decides for itself that I will no longer be poisoned by my suffering. I must use it as fuel for my own salvation. And then you become an alchemist who converts lead into gold. You know, there's people out there who are still trying to do that. In many nuclear reactors, they used to use lead to line the reaction because it would stop the neutrinos and the radiation from leaking out, or at least a part of it. And so you can buy wholesale from very sketchy websites a bunch of lead. So people buy all that lead, and they're trying all these magical recipes to transmute that lead into gold. But the lead they are getting poisoned by. We used to have lead in paints, we used to have lead in our pencils, and we still call it lead. But lead it's something that attaches itself to the enzymes of our metabolic system. Our enzymes have these like upgrade slots for vitamins to slot in to increase their effectiveness. But those same slots can be affected by heavy metals like lead. And unfortunately, instead of catalyzing our metabolic reactions, it slows them down and we suffer. So lead is a poison to us. Gold, on the other hand, gold makes us rich. The bottom of every $1 note in America, it used to say that this represents some amount of gold in the treasury. Instead of passing around bars or coins of gold, we would print those IOUs, which eventually became the main form of currency. But these mystical people that wrote about transmuting lead into gold, it's a more symbolic process of converting some poison into a treasure. And we can do that from within, alchemizing our suffering into bliss, our sorrows into joy. We just have to change our perspective concerning them. Instead of seeing suffering as some kind of punishment made to lessen our spirits, consider it a merciful opportunity to become challenged, and you will arise with faith and greater humility, stronger, wiser, more understanding, and experienced. Then everything becomes a lesson, and with each lesson we grow. That is the alchemy of the soul. And thank you, Sky Guardian. I will re-download the batch. And hello, Dariel. Gardening Gregorji, you ask, Yamaji, what do I do to cure existential dread? Well, let me tell you, I woke up in the middle of the night a few nights ago with enormous existential dread. And so I went out to my backyard and I sat in it. I went cross-legged on the grass / moss. My backyard is very lovely and it has grass and clover and moss instead of just one type of plant. Very nice to sit on. So I just observed my thoughts. Just observed them, and inwardly I was feeling very calm, but the body
the body was taking on that dread, very nauseous. And the body did end up throwing up. I will admit to that. And then I thought, oh no, this lovely moss. Now I gotta wash my lawn, yard. The body works in funny ways. You know, my two cats, Sandy and Shadow, they seem not to care much when they throw up. They'll just eat grass and plants, and when they throw up, it's like, oh, yeah, just getting it out of my system. I think my body is like that too. Being patient with my body and my mind, knowing that this too shall pass, continuing to bring my mind back to a gratitude thought, a thought of gratitude. Every time that we go through such an experience, and then we feel the peace that comes after in its wake, we are reminded that peace pervades this whole experience, and that it is always there for us to return to. There is no possibility of escaping that peace. No matter how worked up you get in your mind, peace is always accessible. A genuine, authentic, sincere, and everlasting peace. Sometimes you just gotta wait. Let the body and mind process whatever it's processing. Be kind to them both. Take care of them like they were children. And as the mother of your body and mind, as that soul mother that you are of your divine children, body and mind, take care of them with love, nurture them. And if they're throwing a tantrum, know that this too shall pass. They'll tire themselves out. Thank you, Dob Darker, for your heartmeat. Hari Om Tat Sat. In Gardening Gregor G, you ask, why is humanity capable of such horror, though, just because it's possible? How do we overcome? It really goes to show that we really have been granted freedom of will. And in that freedom of will, we are capable of the whole gamut of experiences, from some dark stuff to some light stuff too. And that makes the light stuff that much more meaningful to engage in, because it shows that it is from your pure choice that you decide to engage in the light, the positivity, the gratitude. You don't have to. You can spend the rest of your life making a horror movie for yourself and everyone else. That's within your power, but you don't have to do that. That gives power to your choices to make decisions that heal, to love, to nurture. It goes to show that you are the creator of light in your life. Or maybe creator isn't the most accurate word here. Your higher self is. You allow that agency to work through you. And that allowance becomes much more meaningful when you recognize that
You don't have to do it, but you do it because you can. A conduit. I like that word. G to infinity. You share that karma can be so stressful. It doesn't have to be. Karma means that you are entirely in charge of your life. That is all karma means. It means that everything that you can experience is decided by you. And thank you, Usha, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, L-Wave Rider, for your subscription here. I am grateful for the opportunity to connect with you deeper, and I hope you enjoy the sticker pack as always. Radhe Radhe. And the link below. Thank you for your hanging lights. Jai Sitaram. Gregor, you ask, is every great person also horrible? A person is not defined by their track record of perfection compared to imperfection, by their good deeds compared to their bad deeds. It is how they take accountability for their bad deeds and become humble through their good deeds. Therefore, it is accountability and humility which are higher virtues, rather than simply trying to minimize the bad deeds and maximize the good deeds. You could spend your whole life making mistakes, and as long as you take accountability for each one, then you are divine. And you could spend your whole life making good deeds, but if you never have humility, then what is the point of all your good deeds? And Bobby So, thank you for your heart meet, your team bracelet, and cheer you up. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sky Guardian, you share that a Stanford PhD scientist has concluded from his research that there is no free will. Your thoughts? I agree that, as far as science is concerned, there is no room for free will. That is because free will is spiritual and not scientific. What do I mean by that? I mean that all that can be measured by our senses or scientific instruments, you will only ever be measuring the material. What can show up on a chart must necessarily be the effect of a cause, and not the cause itself. A cause can never be seen, because it is the agency of that which can be seen, can be felt, can be heard, etc. That which is detectable is the after effect of some cause, but the cause itself remains unknown because it is behind the very eyes of the scientist, at the level of the observer, rather than that which can be observed. In other words, consciousness can never be the object of consciousness, and it is the objects of the world that science studies.
As long as you study objects, they will remain inert. It is the consciousness itself which gives rise to all phenomenon, and that can never be made detectable, because it is that from which all tests arise, all detections become observable. Even spiritually concerned, it is never said in any scripture that the body has free will, nor the mind, nor even the intellect nor ego. It is entirely the agency of awareness where this whole human system is controlled. It is the flow of one's awareness through Sangha, association, that this whole experience is indirectly directed. And that's not something which can be measured just by definition. It's not a matter of having inadequate tests or improper theories or irresolute instruments. By definition, consciousness can't be measured because it's that which is doing the measuring. And thank you, Lone Wolf, for your finger heart and quartet of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Keys, thank you for your finger heart. Radhe Radhe. And Laurie, thank you for your tiny tiny. Yippee! And Maitreya, thank you for your 6 roses. Please come soon. Jai Sitaram. Sky Guardian, you share that it's time to read from another section of the Vachana Amrut. I agree. Yes, let's do so. But King Kai, you had a great question first. Can I talk on the fact that God is consciousness and the supreme subject of everything in the multiverse? It's a good definition for God. Yes. Sometimes one of my favorite techniques for coming to understanding is I'll take something and then I'll take its definition and I'll put that definition on the first line of a notebook. I'll ask myself, what is God? And I'll just come up with a simple, maybe general definition. Doesn't really matter, I'll put it down. And then I'll ask myself, well, what's the meaning of each of these words? And then you get a whole paragraph, right? Because one word comes into a whole sentence, and then each word from that sentence evolves into a whole paragraph. Alright, so now I got a whole paragraph of meaning. Let's try to simplify that again. Let's get that back down to one sentence. And so you end up with a second revision of the definition of your original word. And you keep doing this until you converge on an idea. And I think you'll find by this process, your original concept starts to become increasingly abstract, and you begin to gain a higher perspective over the symbolism that is inherent in whatever word you start with. I like big words like God and love and soul and consciousness. If you keep going like this, you'll find that all of those words end up becoming very similar. That if you keep abstractifying the concept of God, the concept of love, of soul, of consciousness, they all converge to the very same thing. And it's something that can't really be described by any word or set of words in particular. Yet you start to get this feeling that God is consciousness. Consciousness is love. Love is the soul. And no philosophical theory can tell you this. It's just a funny feeling that you begin to have. And that funny feeling is so difficult to express in logical terms. It's something that you begin to experience rather than think about. Nothingness as well. Nothingness, consciousness, divinity. They're all very similar. They all hold space for something to arise within. But yes, let us read from another section of the Vachana Amrut. This is a text which has been given to me by Sky Guardian. It serves as the Bible of sorts for a certain spiritual organization known as the BAPS. They are kind of a lineage that can be considered a part of Hinduism, although as we heard in our reading today earlier, what might be called as Hinduism is more of a way of life that has arisen around the region of Bharat. It might be called a sampradaya, a lineage of the eternal path that we are all on. Anyway, the main character, the protagonist of the Vachana Amrut, is known as Sriji Maharaj, also known as Swami Narayan, who is said to be a divine being that came here on earth within the last few hundred years, in the turn of the 19th century or 18th century. 19th century. Today we are reading Gadhada 125. On the morning of Posh Sudhi the 7th, Samvat 1876, or the 23rd of December 1819, Sriji Maharaj arrived at the residence of the Paramahansas, great beings in Dada Kachar's Darbar in Gadhada. He was wearing a white case and had covered himself with a thick white cotton cloth. He had also tied a white fato around his head. He was sitting facing east on the western veranda. At that time, Paramahansas, as well as devotees from various places, had gathered before him. By the way, the title of today's reading is The Flow of 20 Pails of Water. Thereupon, Sriji Maharaj said, out of compassion, "A devotee of that source, God, who observes only Swadharma, the highest righteousness, does not feel completely fulfilled within their heart. That feeling of fulfillment can only be attained by Atma, self-realization, and the knowledge of God's glory. Moreover, the extent of the deficiency in these two attributes determines the extent of the deficiency in their experience of fulfillment. Therefore, a devotee of God should firmly cultivate these two qualities. Moreover, the extent of the deficiency remaining in these two factors also determines the extent of the hindrances experienced during Samadhi, a kind of absorption reached through meditation. Recently, I granted Samadhi to a devotee in which she saw intense divine light. Seeing that light, she began to scream. She shouted, 'I'm burning!' Therefore, even those who experience Samadhi require Atma,
self-realization. If one does not realize one's own self to be the Atma, and instead believe oneself to be the body, much deficiency will remain. I explained to that devotee, yourself is the Atma. Not the body. You are not this Ladghibhai of the Bhat community. Rather, yourself is the Atma, which is unpierceable and uncuttable. I then placed her into Samadhi again and told her, go to the 4-petaled lotus at the site of Ganapati and behold your own self there. When a person in Samadhi enters the site of Ganapati, that person hears divine sounds and sees divine light. When they enter the higher site of Brahma, they hear louder sounds and see brighter light. When they enter still the higher site of Vishnu, by the way, that first site of Brahma refers to the Creator. Here the site of Vishnu refers to the Pervader or the Preserver. They hear even louder sounds and see even brighter light. In this manner, as they enter higher and higher locations, they hear increasingly louder sounds and see increasingly brighter light. As a result of the intense divine light seen in that Samadhi and the loud thunderous sounds that occur, even the most resolute become timid. For example, despite being a devotee of God, and despite being extremely brave, Arjuna was still incapable of beholding God's Vishvarup form, their cosmic form. He therefore pleaded, "O Maharaj, I am incapable of beholding this form of yours. Please grant me darshan, sight, of your former form." Similarly, in Samadhi, when thunderous noises or thundering noises like those of an entire Brahmanda, entire universe exploding are heard, and masses of intense light are overflowing, like overflowing oceans are seen, even the brave lose their patience. Therefore, one should understand one's own self to be distinct from the body. Samadhi, experienced in this manner, is achieved in 2 ways. One is by controlling the pranas, the vital energies, through pranayama, breath control, whereby the citta is also controlled, the consciousness. The other is by controlling the citta, whereby the pranas are also controlled. When is control over the citta achieved? It is achieved when one's vrittis, their focus from everything else, is detached and focused only on God. However, these vrittis can be focused on God only when desires for everything else are overcome, and only a singular desire for the form of God remains. Thereafter, those vrittis will not be deflected from God's form by any means whatsoever. For example, if 20 pails of water are drawn from a well, and the flow of water from each pail allowed to flow in separate directions, then there would be little force in each flow. However, if the flow of all 20 pails of water are combined, then the resultant flow would become extremely powerful, like that of a river, and would not be able to be diverted by any means whatsoever. Similarly, when a person's vrittis have become free of worldly desires, their citta focuses only on God's form. Conversely, when a person has desires in their citta for the pleasures of the world, their vritti is widely dispersed among countless types of sounds via the ears. Similarly, via the skin, the vritti is dispersed among thousands of different types of touch sensations. The vritti of the eyes is dispersed among thousands of different types of things to see. The vritti of the tongue is dispersed among thousands of different types of tastes, and the vritti of the nose is dispersed among countless types of smells. In the same manner, the vrittis of their karma indriyas, their sense organs of action, of locomotion, are dispersed among their respective vishais, experiences of the senses, in thousands of different ways. In this ways, via the 10 indriyas, the 10 senses, sense organs, their antakaran, their whole mind is dispersed in thousands of different ways. Only when their citta, mind or consciousness, contemplates on God, and their mana, their mind, generates thoughts of God, and their buddhi, their intellect, establishes the conviction of God, and their ahamkar, their ego, harbors the consciousness, I am the Atma, the true self, the soul, and a devotee of God, can their desire for God be known to have become singular. Alternatively, the control of the jit, by controlling the pranas, the vital breath or energies, is achieved by Ashtanga Yoga, the eightfold yoga system, the 8 limbs of yoga, which comprises of 8 stages: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, and samadhi. This Ashtanga Yoga is a means, and its fruit is the nirvikalpa samadhi, the formless absorption of God. When this nirvikalpa samadhi is achieved, the citta is controlled by controlling the pranas. On the other hand, if the citta focuses on God after becoming free of worldly desires, then the pranas are controlled by control of the citta. Therefore, just as the citta is controlled by mastering Ashtanga Yoga, similarly, the citta can also be controlled by focusing on the form of God. A devotee whose citta's vritti, the focus of consciousness, becomes focused on the form of God, masters Ashtanga Yoga without even attempting to master it. Therefore, the spiritual endeavors of Atma, self-realization, and the knowledge of God's glory that I have just described should be firmly practiced. Furthermore, one's religious vows, which are God's injunctions, should certainly be observed. For example, the Dharma, the righteousness of a Brahmin, of a spiritually minded kind of person who is religious in nature, is to bathe, lead a pure life, and never drink even water from a Shudra's house, from a laborer's house. Similarly, a satsangi, a participant in satsang, of a true gathering of spiritual people, should never falter in observing God's injunctions. Why? Because God will be pleased with them
if they behave accordingly. Moreover, a person should very firmly maintain both the knowledge of God's glory as well as the knowledge of the Atma, the Self, coupled with vairagya, dispassion. They should also feel fulfilled by realizing, now I have no deficiencies remaining. With this understanding, they should constantly offer bhakti, devotion, to that source God. Having said this though, they should not be carried away in the elation of this understanding, nor should they feel unfulfilled. If they do feel unfulfilled, then the blessings that have been showered upon them by that source God can be considered as not having germinated, like a seed sown in saline soil. Conversely, if they get carried away and begin to behave waywardly, then that is like having thrown a seed into a fire, which burns it. Therefore, if one understands as I have explained, then no form of deficiency will remain whatsoever. After saying this, Sriji Maharaj returned to his seat. Thus we end Gadada 125. The flow of 20 pails of water, which, if we may reflect back on again for a moment, 20 pails of water flowing in different directions, they will each be but a trickle, and each one easily diverted. But 20 pails of water poured in the same direction, now that is a mighty force, hard to divert. Similarly, we should direct all of our senses towards that divine source, trying to see God, hear God, taste God, smell God, feel God, in everything that we do. How do we do that? With the right knowledge that God is manifest as everything. There is nothing undivine in this world. And 20 is such a specific number, says G to Infinity. I assume that number was chosen in reference to the 5 senses of knowledge, the jnana, what do they call the jnana indriyas, and the 5 senses of action, the karma indriyas. I forget exactly what they are, but they're the organs of digestion and moving and speaking, etc. So we should also try to eat God, move like God, and speak only God, that kind of thing as well. In everything that we do, both in our senses of understanding and our senses of action. And I assume that 20 is just a double of that number 10. I guess every sense can go either one of 2 ways, perhaps. That is my theory, at least. I don't know. Otherwise, it's just an arbitrarily large number that's not too small but not too big. And thank you, Laurie, for your 10 roses a minute ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. Cornbread, hello. You share that you feel sad today for some reason. That's very understandable. There's a lot of love and loss being shared around, and conversation and in many different forms today. It's okay to have a heavy heart. And Jen Singh, thank you for your balloons and donut. Jai Sitaram. And hello, Michelle. Orla Conway, you share it. that you think today is an emotional day, and that is okay. We are all safe together. Protecting each other is our default setting. I love that. So true. And hello, Melinda. You share that South Carolina, showing my support. I'm happy to hear that. And thank you, Sarah Lynn, for your tiny and heart me. Yippee! And Keys, thank you for your finger heart. Arion Tatsat. And Katie Pond, thank you for your team bracelet. Radhe or Radhe. And thank you, Rasulullah, for your sharing of blessings with everyone. Yeah, it is an emotional day today. It's Mother's Day. And some of us no longer have our mothers. That is true, 31 planes. But we are all surrounded by opportunities to be motherly and have people express their motherhood with us, even if they aren't our biological mother, nor are we today. And Cornbread, you share that you're sad because you couldn't give anything. You are the gift itself, as the mother has given you into this world. You are her own gift to herself. Your life is the blessing that you render unto Mother Earth, at the very least. And I like that, Anthony. Mother's Day is every day, really. Yes. And thank you, Sarah Lynn, for another finger heart and pair of roses. Arion Tatsa. Speaking of my mother, I will be going rather shortly to go take her out for some Indian food. So I will be ending the live stream within the next 20 minutes or so. But I still have some plans before we go. I started earlier today so that I could also end earlier. But before we go, I have a question of the day for you all. My question today is, what do you do to care for the mother? How do you give back? How do you love that source of love? I'm sure there are many ways, but just tell me one. And thank you, MMC. Masala dosa and malai kofta. Okay, I will remember that, Sky Guardian. Michelle, you do anything for her, really? I love that. That's so sweet. Do what was told, says Cornbread. And thank you, Melinda. Orla, you share that you all know that she's an angel because of how I've been able to arrive in this present moment. Thank you. I will pass on your best wishes to her. And Magdalene, you share. Reciprocate her unconditional love unto her heart. Oh, it's so sweet.
Zakira, you share. You give her your patience and listen to her with every word. And Mark, you are asking, what do I think of Abrahamic religions and original sin? It's a good question. Perhaps we can continue this question at another time. Or if you are just curious to hear my opinion in particular, feel free to message me and I'll get back to you tonight on one of my platforms. MMC, you share that you put a call through to your mom and tell her she deserves to be celebrated every day. Aw, that's so lovely. And hello, Sakiko. Thank you for your love. All the same back to you. And Priscilla, you do all that you can for her. I am happy to hear that. And thank you, Aquarius lady. And Sky Guardian, you add that Malai kofta goes with paratha or naan. Okay, good to know. Karm, you spend time with her and ask her questions about her youth, and she goes on for hours reminiscing. That's such a blessing. Ah, yes, it's good to feel young again, even if it's just through our memories. How wonderful. Bing, you share that your mother cheated on your dad and you are the result. Your dad has Alzheimer's and has no idea. Wow. That is a very interesting combination of events. I am sure that you are meant to be here, regardless of how you have come into this world. That is true. And much love to you and your mother and your dad. In 31 Planes, you share that your mother was always the best of you all. You try to keep some of her holiday traditions. I like that. Tatvamasi, you say take her current burdens, let her feel lighter. I like that. And much love, Dario. Gamer Affair. Yes, you question my definite article in front of Mother. Just as there is the Father in all things, there is also the Mother. Motherhood is a uniting experience. There really is only one mother, and she expresses herself through so many lovely beings, doesn't she? Sounds good, Mark. And Esther, you share that your mom died 5 years ago. You did all you can for her. She died holding her hand. You honor her every day. And it's lovely that she got to hold hands as she passed. That's a powerful experience. And I'm very happy to hear that. You know that you did all you could or can, and that you honor her every day. So lovely. And Ariet, you care for her children, including yourself. I love that. And Anna, you share that mothering plants, so you let mother happy. I like that. I understand. And thank you, 31 Planes, for your hand hearts as well. Radhe, oh Radhe. And Aunt Vicky, thank you for your hand hearts too. Jai Sita Ram. Orla Conway, you share that as an adult you show gratitude to your mom by asking her questions to connect with her real personality outside of what she provides to you. You want her to feel seen. That's so lovely.
And how'd you do that? That's the longest comment I've ever seen. Sounds like the universe was saying, yes, you are allowed to express yourself fully with this thought.
Just as you allowed your mother to express herself fully. In Bad Dream, you share that she isn't with you in body anymore, so you pass her love and wisdom to your children. That's so lovely. In L-Wave Rider, you apologize for your teenage years and appreciate her patience and forgiveness. I love that. Giselle, you always try to help your mommy out with everything or anything, and you also hug her. She loves hugs. I'm so happy to hear that. That's right, I am taking my mom out for dinner today, Anthony. Alright, so with that, although I'm sure that there are many other ways we can inquire about caring for our mothers, I am very grateful for this exploration. And happy Mother's Day again to all you lovely motherly beings. And L-Wave Rider, thank you for your rose. Radhe, oh Radhe. Now, in the interest of saving time so I can take my mother out for dinner, I will pause our reading of Roar the Ganges for tonight, and we'll return next time. But we will end with a short chanting for the mother. Today we are going to do... What am I moving? I'm moving the wrong thing. I'm trying to move ASMR Sunday down. Or up. We are doing a mantra for the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine. This one means something like, O Goddess, adorned by oceans, mountains as her chest, I bow to Vishnu's consort, Lakshmi. Lakshmi is one form, I suppose, but the Divine Goddess herself comes in many forms, and seek forgiveness for my feet's touch. Mother Earth, we hide her with each of our footsteps. I apologize for that. And then some sacred bija syllables. Hrim Shrim Klim. To the Bountiful One, Swaha. So I'm going to be minimizing the background music that we've been listening to so far, so we can maximize, I believe, Swami Taratmanandaji's recitation of this mantra, and we'll do it a couple times. Thank you, Anthony. I believe that last line, Om Hrim Shrim Klim Vasundharayai Swaha, is repeated many times at the end. So, just letting you know. And allow me to ensure that you all get to hear this when I press play. Good. And this is Sanskrit, Kenny. A very ancient language.
Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Parasparsham Kshamaswame. Om Hrim Shrim Klim Vasundharayai Swaha. 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 Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale Vishnupatni Namastubhyam Parasparsham Kshamaswame. Om Hrim Shrim Klim Vasundharayai Swaha. 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 Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale Vishnupatni Namastubhyam Parasparsham Kshamaswame. Om Hrim Shrim Klim Vasundharayai Swaha. 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 Om Hrim Shrim Klim Vasundharayai Swaha.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening with me to that auspicious mantra for the Divine Feminine. Those sacred syllables, Hrim, Shrim, Klim, they are said to be God in the form of sound, or Goddess in the form of sound. They should only be recited in very specific circumstances because they hold so much power of vibration. Now, thank you all again for joining us today on this lovely adventure on Mother's Day. And thank you, Indigo, for your cloud bread. Radhe, Radhe. And I'm happy you loved the mantra today, Anna. And again, happy Mother's Day to the Divine Mother within all of you. Radhe Radhe. I will be uploading the recording of this live stream as always to my Yamsox Live's YouTube channel. Also, I have an ASMR YouTube channel, which I will be posting this live stream to, actually. I just remembered. On ASMR Sundays, I post these ones to the ASMR channel, where we do other stuff as well. May this be an offering to Sri Radha Krishna. Emphasis on Radha today. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Shyam Shyam, Radhe Radhe. And thank you, Heather, for your heart me and Team Bracelet. May you all have a wonderful rest of your present moment. I am going to go, hopefully, and take my mother out to dinner now. Shalom. Shalomi homies.